Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Imagination Factory. I'm Sarah.
I'm Keith.
And today we're doing an imagination session and we're starting something new. We've been working for the past few weeks on our Lizard Western, which we finished up last time. And that was a lot of fun to make. And this week we are starting fresh with something from our imaginations. All right. So, I have something in mind, but did you have anything in mind? I feel like it's always my idea. So,
Not really. I like having the suggestion. So
okay. So this week, it's one suggestion, but it's something that can go in many different ways.
okay.
So the suggestion is treasure, something to do with treasure. So in my mind, we could have pirate treasure, we could have a treasure map, we could have crown jewels, we could have something stolen. Treasure just to me felt like it could go anywhere, but there's always a good story
Mhm.
when treasure is involved.
Well, I kind of think about some kind of like epic kind of something like the Goonies or something,
Yeah,
like
that's a great,
kids
yes.
kind of taking a treasure from some bad guys or something that's guarding treasure. And then when I thought of that, I'm like, oh, wait a second. What if I were to do something where you have like some kind of sleeping ogre uh
Guarding it.
guarding the treasure? So you need a little bit of length here
Hmm.
to be able to uh, get that scope, the epic scope of whatever it is that the ogre is guarding. Let me see.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just kind of trying
Yeah,
to
yeah.
figure out like what would be a good composition.
Well, and I love that because I feel like there's so much adventure around the word treasure, right? Normally, when you hear it, there's a story. There's a story of either, how we got it or how we're going to get it. And I love the idea of an ogre kind of guarding the treasure because immediately that lends itself to some kind of a legend, right? That somebody is intrigued to get it because they've heard that it's there, but it's guarded by this ogre. So, how do you actually get to the treasure?
Hmm. Yeah. So okay. Right. I mean, I'm thinking it's the ogre sleeping against some trees
Hmm.
that are bending the tree trunk. So maybe the ogre actually is like not necessarily um it's not like a place where they go
Hmm.
to get the treasure. It could be that the ogre itself took the treasure and fell asleep, and the like, I don't know, whatever, the bandits or whatever are now taking the opportunity to, the ogre did the dirty work for the treasure seekers, and now they're like, climbing up the side of them very quiet, stealthily to get, the thing that they had planned on getting to begin with, right?
Yeah, it's almost got like a bit of a like Jack and the Beanstalk Golden Goose vibe, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, don't wake it up. It already took the treasure. And then the question is, what is the treasure, right? What did the ogre steal or guard that these guys are trying to get while he's snoozing by the trees?
Yeah. So now the question is like, because I thought, well, this would be kind of cool to be like horizontal. So
Mhm.
how how big is this ogre in comparison with the thieves?
Yeah. Well, that's it. And then how big is the treasure in comparison too? Because this ogre is huge and the treasure is huge. How are they going to get it off of him?
Right. So they have like bags or something
Yeah.
that they're going to have to use to like put the gold. And maybe what they're going to do as well is one of them has like a rock or something that they're going to like trade
Mm,
to keep the weight of it the same.
right. Very Indiana Jones.
Right.
Swap it out so he doesn't wake up.
Exactly.
Oh, so these guys have been planning this. So they've been watching and waiting for the ogre to steal the treasure so that they could steal it back.
Yeah, yeah, and here's the thing. Now, there's all different time. Like the time we can have this playing out. Like, is this a moment as the ogre just fell asleep, or is the ogre just waking up? So is like one eye open, right? So, like, what are your thoughts? Should
I
the
think
ogre?
that it should be that it is waking up. Like they came when it was in a deep sleep, but it's almost like it was a much bigger job than they anticipated, right? Like they're like, we'll be in and out in 5 minutes. But when they actually got there, the size of the ogre climbing up the rock, the whole business, the ogre started to stir just as they were about to get the treasure.
Right. So then you've got. I'm imagining you've got one of the thieves like with the bag
Hmm.
that they filled up with some kind of loot, and then you've got another one up there, still in the process of doing it, and then you've got the third one here, um, putting like a rock or something into the
Yeah, to replace it.
right. So
Hmm.
I'm not sure if like you would need dialogue to uh explain like what is going on here because would the viewer be like, oh, yeah, of course it makes sense. They're trying to fill up or make sure that the weight of the treasure that the chest is, feels the
Hmm.
same. But then, of course, it doesn't matter because the ogre's kind of starting to wake up. Or are they going to do something where like the one guy's like, quick, sing a song, right?
Yeah, I was
Get
gonna
the
say, or
ogre
bonk him on the head with the rock
right.
quickly.
Oh, yeah, that could be another thing too.
It's got a different purpose now. You can get them. Yeah, this almost feels a little bit like, it would go with like, a paragraph story, right? Like it's almost like you'd need like a short little something to explain what the treasure was, how it got there, and what these guys were going to do with it. And then this is that sort of moment where they got caught by the ogre, just waking up. Their plan, their well thought out, meticulous plan, you know, goes awry right before they were almost away with it. Because that's always the best moment, right? They almost got away with it.
Right. And then now it's a matter of them improvising very quickly.
Hmm.
The rock was going to be used uh, in the chest, but now the one of them's like, what do I do? What do I do? And the other one could be like, sing, sing, and then and then the guy could have a horrible voice,
Yeah, it's like,
right?
don't sing, stop singing.
It's you're making it worse. It's waking him up even more.
Yeah, now he's trying to plug his ears and everything's shaking because he can't, he's moving now. Yeah, it's like you could see how quickly this meticulous, well thought out plan could go real bad real fast.
Yeah. It kind of does remind me a little bit of, and I'm not necessarily saying we should connect this with the clock or the
Mm,
door in any way, but what I was just our two robbers from that one
yeah,
clock that we like the where they have the clock. I just kind of imagine it's a similar kind of vibe where they're uh just inept in at what they're doing. So maybe the well thought out plan isn't as well thought out as they thought, right?
exactly. And it's almost like, maybe the one that's actually getting away with the bag was the mastermind. He's like, I'll do this part first and you guys finish up. So he's like, haha, I'm out of here with the bulk of the treasure while you guys deal with the waking ogre. And it's, it was a plan where he didn't think all three of them would get away, and that was okay with him.
Yeah. So
Sacrificing his buddies.
yeah, so just going into like the composition here, um, one of the things I like to do I don't know if this is just a designed thing or a thing that I like to do, but I always like to do like odd numbers. So you have like three character. Well, technically you have the ogre as a fourth, but like the three of the characters, because the ogre, I guess in my thinking, the ogre in this scenario is very much like part of the
Yeah.
environment. If the ogre was standing up, I don't know if I maybe would have thought of making two characters, but the ogre is kind of part of the environment. So I feel like I want three characters that are um, moving. I just like odd. I'd like to
Mhm.
have those odd numbers. Do you have like something about that too, where you have like when you have like a gang or a
Mhm.
group of friends? Is it? Do you think? Do you
I
plan it
almost
that
always
way?
go even.
Do you go even?
I usually go even, and I don't never really thought about it too much till you just mentioned that, and then I was thinking back and I'm like, yeah, it's I mean, I actually like it goes back and forth. Like I don't have a strong preference, but from a visual standpoint, it makes sense, right? With, written word storytelling, it doesn't impact in the same way, but from a composition standpoint, I can see why you like the odd numbers in that kind of group of three, because it is more dynamic than just two of them. That's for sure.
Yeah. So why do you only do you have a reason why you do two and twos for writing?
You know what? Not really, other than often when I'm doing things, I do a lot of stuff that's like ensemble, and I end up like breaking people into groups, and it just works better to have even. So you break people into sort of even groups as they're moving around, or like, events where there's couples or there's whatever. It's just, again, I've written stories where there is, three characters for sure, but I tend to default to an even number when I'm doing bigger groups.
Hmm. Do you like I guess because you're working with something that doesn't require a visual medium,
Yes.
it doesn't it changes the way you think about it. Do you think from this point on you would think differently
I
because
think
now
it
you're
depends on
making
what its end goal is, right? Like what I'm doing with it. Um, because I guess it also depends on the storytelling, right? Like what's going to make the most sense in that point of view. And if there's specific roles that you need to be filled for the type of story that you're telling, and whether that be three, four, five different characters for that to work. But like when I think of like my murder mystery novel, it ended up being an even number of people, just the way that it worked out. And I didn't really think about it being that until, having this conversation, because I guess I wasn't really forethought for me in terms of like, is this odd or even? It was just like, how many characters do I need to tell the story properly? But when I'm doing something visual, that's, something to keep in mind and to be flexible with that with an artist to be like, from a composition standpoint, what is going to work well for this. Like in this instance, I wasn't like, oh, it's got to be two people. Why would we do three? I'm like, three works. Totally fine. Looks good. Makes sense. So I think it really does depend on the narrative goal.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could have been two in this case. It's really funny though, because like if the ogre had actually been more mobile, I
Mhm.
may have went with two. So it would have, or if there were three characters, I may not have had that third one in there in that moment just because of like the to balance out the composition, right? It's a weird kind of I guess it's a little bit of a quirk to,
Yeah.
uh, the just if you're when you're designing something, you want to have it balanced in a certain way. Like, so I guess one of the things that I think about too is an odd number automatically makes something a little bit more asymmetrical,
Hmm.
right? Unless you have the three characters standing up straight. Uh, but even in that situation, it still kind of can be a little bit off. Whereas two or four can make things very even, uh,
Yes.
like in some ways. So you have to figure out ways to like, so asymmetrical for anybody who's kind of curious to what I'm talking about. Um, when it comes to compositions, depending obviously on what kind of effect you're trying to get across. When you have something that's very vertical, like columns or something, that's like stability. If you have three columns grouped together and then one column outside of it, it creates like a bit of an asymmetry, an imbalance, and
Hmm.
that's something that the eye. It's a little bit more interesting for the eye. It just people. gravitate towards things that have that, that's something that's a little bit more, a little bit off or a little bit imbalanced to something that's more diagonal versus all vertical and horizontal. Like all of those things go into the thought process in regards to making whatever you're creating the most pleasing to the eye,
Right.
or it could, or something that's the most, could be off-putting to the eye, but just something that's going to make the person's eye linger longer. Really,
Yeah.
you want them to look at something for the maximum amount of length, because that's really, if you think about the story you're creating, whether it's a single image or multiple, um, if somebody just glosses over it and all that work you put into it, right?
Hmm.
You want them to go back to it and look at it in more detail and think about it a little bit. So anything that makes the eye, makes it dynamic and makes the person who's viewing it go, "Ooh, that's really cool," and really
Yeah.
take, think about why it is that they like it and all that stuff. It just on I guess a superficial level, it gives the artist or the artistic team kind of a pat on the back, going, like this is something that people like looking at, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that that makes a lot of sense. And again, it shows how we're coming at it from different angles, right? You're looking at it as how is it visually pleasing and from a composition standpoint. And I'm looking at it more like narrative storytelling standpoint. And that's why sometimes, like for me, it's like this is how I would tell the story to get these kinds of characters, this kinds of motion and movement, but not necessarily thinking about how it would look in a composition, which is why it's always interesting to talk to someone who's going to then translate it into a visual. Because it could even be something like, for this particular scene that I'm going to draw, maybe we only show three of the characters and there could be, the other one hasn't shown up yet or whatever to give it that neat visual composition, if that makes sense to the storytelling, right? Like there could be the fourth one and he's already escaped or he hasn't shown up yet or he's watching guard up in the distance and we don't actually see him in this particular image, but he exists in the story. But from a composition standpoint, it's more interesting to only have the three of them show up, right? So there's always ways you can get around it to get the storytelling you wanted out, as well as have a visual that is really impactful.
Yeah. Exactly. Like there's a lot of, that's part of the job of the, if it's a team of the writer and the artist, and the writer gives some kind of blueprints,
Mhm.
and I personally like it when the writer gives that leeway to go, I've given you all the like ingredients, or
Mhm.
like the thing for you to follow directions, but there's many different ways
Yes.
to get to the end product. Like there's many different ways to approach this, and I leave it to you to do it. And so if it's a matter of like, well, leaving one of the characters out because that they were there in a previous panel, so it's not a big deal to have all of them every
Mhm.
single time, right? Um,
Exactly. And I think that's one of those things too, is knowing the strength of your team member, right? And being like, here's the story, here's what needs to be portrayed, but I'll leave it to you to how that's going to look from a composition standpoint. And if you think it's going to work better if like I said, the one that's watching out in the distance is out of frame and we don't actually see them because it's more interesting that way, great. Right. Like I wouldn't be one to say like, no, 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 we must have every detail represented in the image, which I also feel like is sometimes where writers fall down, is that they get so worried about making sure that every single thing they put in is shown versus what's the best way to interpret this into a visual that's still going to get the point across, but doesn't have to have every level of minutia in it to tell the story.
yeah. Well, that's it. That's again, that's where the artist may come in, where they understand composition, and they
Hmm.
understand how the eye works to in a way where they know like what is going to make for the most interesting, intriguing uh story, the page, and then the series of page. So really starting within the panel, then within the page, and then the series of pages, like figuring out how to make it flow in a way that gets across exactly what the writer is trying to intend, but also enhancing it in a way that like, because the writer will describe a lot of things, and then the artist doesn't have to like, you know, put all those words in there. They can just draw it, and even just kind of insinuate it or make a suggestion of it. And even though the writer may have like put a lot of time and effort into like describing some gnarly tree and all the surroundings, and then like the artist will go, well, I get it, you want something gnarly, I'm going to suggest the gnarliness, I'm not going to necessarily make the tree some of it's going to be in shadow and some of it's going to be gnarly, like that kind of thing. And then so it's the writer's got to be okay with that kind of interpretation. To your point, sometimes the writer's like, no, 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 that all
My
those
gnarly
words,
tree.
yeah, all of those words I created, they need to have
Yeah.
weight, right?